Chapter 5. Why your site is not perfect. There are in fact many methods for identifying landing page problems, and seeing why they are not meeting the needs of your internet visitors. You just need the guts to lift the veil of denial, and to view these flaws and compromises objectively. Your baby is ugly. Imagine that you have been involved in designing landing pages for a long time. This typically involves holding fun brainstorming sessions, creating exciting graphical presentations of possible page designs, and writing persuasive offers and text copy. Then comes the public unveiling. As the euphoria of the project starts to wear off, you inevitably start to see chinks in the armor of your beautiful and perfect creations. The text is too long, the intended audience is not identified clearly enough, there are no useful navigational cross-links. If someone lands on a page deep within the site, it gets worse. Your dread may grow as objective evidence of poor design starts to mount. High shopping cart abandonment rates, extensive call-ins to the toll-free support number, high bounce rates on important pages, lower than expected conversion numbers. Yet, in all of this gloom lies the way out of the mess too. After that, you'll see exactly why your landing pages are at cross purposes with the way that people take in and process information. Based on your honest analysis, you can prepare yourself for deciding exactly which elements to test. Somewhere in the world is the world's worst doctor, and someone has an appointment with him tomorrow. Comedian George Carlin. The chilling thought above is brought to you by the deliciously twisted mind of master comedian George Carlin. What makes it so funny is that it is factually correct. There is somewhere by definition the world's worst doctor. Of course, the consequences of being the world's worst landing page designer are not as severe. No one will die on the operating table. Your online marketing campaign will simply fail. If you are not the worst one, your campaign may simply bump along at a much smaller scale than it otherwise could. Besides, you can always go to your bosses, and after throwing up your hands in frustration, tell them all about how it is impossible to get cost-effective traffic to your site in the face of ever-increasing advertiser competition and rising prices. The reality for most online marketers is this: you did not major in psychology, you have no formal training in usability, you have never taken a persuasive copywriting course, you do not understand test design or statistics, and you have rarely interacted with an actual user of our company's products or services. Yet most online marketers do not want to admit that they are doing a poor job at landing page design. They liken ourselves to the denizens of the mythical Lake Wobegon from Garrison Keillor's Prairie Home Companion, where the women are strong, the men are good-looking, and the children are all above average. The whole discipline of decision-making theory is based on the understanding that people have warped perceptions of themselves. They do not make rational decisions. People consistently overestimate their own skills, influence, and importance. In one survey, 80% of participants reported that they were above-average drivers. You have to let go of your own professional ego structure long enough to let the following truth sink in. Stop. Now repeat this over and over until it starts to properly sink in. Uncovering problems instead of waiting only for good news. Filter it out instead. Accentuate the negative. Focus on problems and things that are askew. The mindset that I am describing is not some prescription to become a cynical person. It is actually a well-respected business approach called managing by exception. Assuming that you have set up your systems and procedures properly, you should have key indicators that tell you when things are going smoothly. During those times you should work on further strategic improvements to your business. Only if something goes wrong, as quickly flagged by your monitoring of key performance indicators, should your attention and resources be focused on the problem. I do not mean to imply that if your online campaign is making money, that you should be satisfied and smug. Unless every potential customer among your internet visitors has already converted, you still have a lot of work to do. The main point is to unflinchingly uncover and face problems, and not to duck or hide from them. This spirit of continuous problem solving and improvement is at the heart of some of the most successful businesses on the planet. It should be an example for all of us to follow. Now that you are prepared to look for landing page problems, you will discover that there are a lot of places to turn. Audience role modeling. Obvious problems with your site can be discovered by overlaying the matrix, which I mentioned in Chapter 3, understanding your audience, onto it. Once you have identified all of your important user groups or roles, you can assign them to the important tasks that they may be trying to solve. For each task you need to make sure that the person is properly guided through the AIDA steps of the decision process. Remember that discussion from Chapter 4, understanding the decision process. If any of the roles, important tasks, or AIDA steps are missing, it is an indication of a potentially important problem. I recently bought some teak patio furniture from Teak Warehouse, www.teakwarehouse.com. Take a look at their website in Figure 5.1. They are a worldwide supplier and distributor of teak outdoor furniture, with several retail locations throughout California. See example page 136. The website is primarily aimed at the retail purchaser. However, Teak Warehouse is also a major supplier to the international market, supplying retailers, hotels, resorts, architects, landscapers, and designers in the Pacific region, Europe, and the United States from their manufacturing facilities in Central Java, Indonesia. The site is an example of non-functional brochure where it does not have any advantage over a corresponding printed brochure. There are no significant interactive features other than, ironically enough, creating a printable brochure of items you are interested in buying. When you overlay the matrix, without even considering the IETA steps within each task, it is clear that the site has obvious gaps and problems. Role 1 Retail buyer partially support task 1 Research available products browsing by category task 2 Get product information cannot determine pricing task 3 Purchase online checkout is not supported task 4 Arrange for delivery not supported 111 Uncovering problems Role 2 Wholesale buyer not well supported task 5 Research available products browsing by category task 6 Get product information cannot determine pricing task 7 Get an online quote not supported task 8 Understand quantity discounts not listed task 9 Apply for credit and payment terms not supported task 10 Arrange for shipping not supported task 11 Arrange for local final assembly not supported It is not difficult to identify key roles or mission critical tasks for most websites. In this case, Teak Warehouse is definitely turning away business by disregarding important needs of their key audiences. Web Analytics. As we discussed in Chapter 3, Web Analytics software offers many powerful tools for analyzing your website and the behavior of your audience. Once historical data has been collected, you can mine it to discover problems that visitors had with your landing page. The following sections highlight how Web Analytics features can be used to discover common problems. Visitors Web Analytics can track the origin and capabilities of your audience in a very detailed manner. This includes geographic targeting, preferred languages, and browser technical capabilities. Map can show you the physical origin of your audience and allows you to drill down to get the exact level of granularity that you need. If your service is national or international in scope, Maps will show you the distribution of visitors across time zones and countries. This information can be used to adjust customer service or business hours, or to create specialized content specifically for certain geographies. If your business covers a number of geographic areas, Maps can help you to decide on the relative importance that you should assign to each in terms of emphasis and screen real estate. See Figure 5.2. See page 138. Languages. If a significant number of your visitors originate in other countries, you can determine whether you are ignoring their needs. Additional native language and native culture-based content may be appropriate. This does not have to be a complete copy of your site in each applicable language. But if you intend to get conversions in other languages, at least the mission-critical task should be available in their native tongue. Technical capabilities. Analytics software records detailed information about the setup and capabilities of the visitor's computer and web browser. This includes the operating system, browser type, screen resolution, internet connection speeds, and support for various browser plug-in technologies such as Flash, Java, and JavaScript. Screen resolution is perhaps the most important technical capability, because it literally defines the visitor's window onto the internet. This can range from a relative peephole to a veritable panorama. Your page should look ideal at the most common minimum resolution in use at the time. But it must also still look good at higher resolutions. People with outdated smaller screens are already used to having suboptimal web browsing experiences. As long as very low resolution represents a small percentage, you should not bend over backward to accommodate everyone. As bigger computer displays become more common, the standard will shift, and your minimum resolution may need to be periodically adjusted. The worst kinds of mistakes are ones that obviously disrupt the intended visual design. The home page for Vacation Palm Springs shown in Figure 5.3 on a wide computer monitor has a darker vertical column in the open space on the right. This is the repetition of a background graphic image, which also served as the backdrop for the navigation column on the left of the page. It would not be exposed at lower resolutions, but is an obvious eyesore for visitors with larger monitors. This is an easily avoidable problem, and is a painful for the company oversight by the designers of the site. The top of the home page for Web Superstore Amazon shown in Figure 5.4 looks good at a 1024 pixel wide minimum screen resolution. The highlighted paragraph describing the featured item at the top of the page looks visually reasonable, and the 3 featured product category images highlighted near the bottom of the page are displayed with appropriate spacing. See page 139. Figure 5.5 shows how the top of the same page looks when displayed on my widescreen 1680 x 1050 pixel monitor. The paragraph at the top of the page has now changed from a readable block to a long and narrow 2-line entry that has less visual connection to the product image next to it. As you will see later in this chapter, lines of text of this length are much less readable. Large gaps have also appeared next to each of the 3 featured category images. It may be more appropriate to feature additional images in this available space, instead of having the space remain blank. Stretching portions of the page design is a reasonable idea for dealing with different screen resolutions and definitely preferable to a fixed-width design. But by itself it is not enough. It is also important to consider spatial relationships, proportions, and changes of emphasis at the different resolutions. These issues can be dealt with more elegantly since the screen resolution information is available. Visible browser window. Another important consideration is what appears above the fold. This term originated in the newspaper industry and referred to the main content that could be seen on the top half of the front page, without flipping the paper or opening it. On the web it describes the content seen on the page without horizontal or vertical scrolling. What appears above the fold is influenced not only by screen resolution, but also by the size of the current browser window, which may be smaller than the whole screen, various currently visible browser toolbars, which take up vertical space, and the default size of the text chosen in the browser. Larger font sizes will push content further down the page. Although long landing pages are no longer the absolute know that they were several years ago, key information should still generally be above the fold. This guarantees that visitors can see all important choices as they make their decision to click away or to stay longer on your site. While internet users are accustomed to scrolling vertically, studies have shown that they universally despise horizontal scrolling. Under no circumstances should your page require horizontal scrolling at common screen resolutions. Be very careful about anything requiring non-standard browser plugins or technologies that are not widely supported. There are fewer experiences more annoying for the visitor than having to download a plugin simply to see your landing page properly. At a minimum, always provide lower-tech alternatives, and never force visitors to download software that may be unfamiliar to them. It goes almost without saying that you should optimize your pages, graphics, and media files to be an appropriate size. A surprisingly large number of internet users still have slow connection speeds. The patience of internet users is very short, and they will not generally wait for long downloads. Likewise, your pages should be tested with common operating systems and browser versions. Like monitor screen sizes, this mix is always evolving and must be revisited periodically. Even small problems with coding style can cause obvious and unintended visual problems on some browsers. New versus returning visitors. With web analytics, it is possible to identify not only the overall percentage of returning visitors, but also important details of their past interactions with your site. Most of the time, the mechanism for tracking repeat visits involves the use of cookies, small files left on the visitor's hard disk by the browser software that can be used to identify visitors and personalize their experience on subsequent visits to the same or related website. There are different types of cookies, including first-party, those left by your website, and third-party, those left by other sites, such as ad servers or some web analytics programs. Recent research indicates that a significant and growing percentage of web surfers regularly delete their cookies, thus destroying traces of their past visits to your site. This has the effect of understating the number of return visitors. Since returning visitors have already been exposed to your message on their first visit, it may lose effectiveness on subsequent visits. Conversely, repeated exposure can actually strengthen your message. In any case, you need to consider if returnees are a significant audience segment for you. If so, you may consider showing different information or even a different offer to this group. For example, returning visitors who have already acted once on your initial offer may not be eligible anymore and should be presented with an appropriate follow-up offer instead. For e-commerce sites, returning buyers should be accorded special status. At a minimum, this means recognizing them and acknowledging their return to your site. Additional business rules can be added to display certain promotions based on customer loyalty, such as the number of purchases or total spending to date. Depth of interaction. There are many ways to determine commitment and engagement. These include return visits and acting on various conversion call to actions. The depth of interaction helps to complete this information. It consists primarily of the length of visit measured by average time spent on your site and the depth of visit measured by page views. These metrics are especially critical to websites that rely on advertising-supported, high-quality content. If a significant number of your visitors display a high degree of commitment to your site, you should consider breaking them out as a separate highly interactive Part 117, uncovering problems of your audience and showing them different content. This may be done while they are still on your site by means of dynamic content presentation. For example, you may give them preferential and free access to premium content, or sweeten your call to action even more to move them out of the desire stage and into action. Traffic sources. Traffic sources come in four main types. Depending on your particular mix, you should consider the following issues. Direct traffic is the result of people typing your company's URL directly